Well, today we've got a returning guest, someone who comes on the radio show or the podcast. We just had a fire pack conversation just a few weeks ago where he predicted that they would try to kill President Trump. We have with us Dr. Paul Alexander. How you doing, sir?
Hey, David, once again, thanks very much for having me on your show. It's always a pleasure. And I had a little issue yesterday and I couldn't come on as planned. So I apologize for that. And to your listeners, it must have messed up your schedule a bit. But a lot has happened in the last 3 weeks in all of our lives. And it's by the hour, some crazy thing is happening. And we just can't keep up. You can't, I can't, because it's like we're living in a twilight zone. And yes, a move was made to kill President Trump.
You predicted that. That was a haunting prediction. I'm sure you're not happy about because it's a disturbing thing to see that happen in real time. And for them to gather all the major news media for the first time at one of his rallies, that was the first time they gathered CNN and everybody else to get a really nice HD camera live take. Whoever that was that put that memo out, may God have mercy on their souls, because they were trying to traumatize a generation of children as well as a whole lot of other things.
Well, I mean, David, even in my conversations with you, you're always often prophetic. Look, we had an issue. I mean, had that bullet struck Trump in his face half of an inch more, he would have died. We would have witnessed Trump's death on national TV live. That's number one. That's to tell you where we were. Number two, come on, these people write me in my Substack. Remember, your listeners should know my Substack, Alexander COVID News, MAGA COVID News. Go to my blog, Substack. But they write and they say, well, you must know something that we don't, because you said Tucker Carlson came on and said they're going to shoot him. You wrote they're going to shoot him. You spoke in that show with David about they're going to shoot him, and they shot him. So what inside information you have about other things? And they try to take me as a person. I'm just thinking logically. It's like the rapes and the murders of the 12 and 13-year-old American girls. How could you flood the border with 20 million illegals, uneducated, unvetted, amongst the Middle Eastern, North African rapists and murderers, and then tell me that they're not going to do the same thing in America? So when I write that we would have rapes and murders, now people are saying, well, how did you know that? Well, it's logical, idiots. I'm sorry. It's logical. So we knew that you could always calling Trump, Kamala Harris, Biden, Obama, Chuck Todd, all of these reporters. Every day you're calling him a fascist. He's Hitler. He's a threat to democracy. Just like you did with Scalise, you would amp up one of your radical, sick leftist freaks to take a shot, and you knew what you were doing. And David, look, this is your show, so you take command what you want to ask and say. But the kind of information you see now and me in the media, it kind of suggests that this is not just a straightforward shooting. It almost looks like it was set up, and this has marks of an inside job, because nothing makes sense. Nothing.
Yeah. Nothing makes sense, but everything makes sense when you think about psychopath, desperate people trying to, divide and conquer the American Republic, right? And more importantly, the people and their minds. They're trying to create demoralization. And I knew something was up viscerally when every time the media and the Democrats get too quiet, you always know they're up to something, And when they had that, Trump's, near miss of assassination, and then they had the debate thing before that, and then they had the RNC with everything looked so like it was all in Trump's favor. And I just thought the media, they're talking too positively about Trump. And I'm like, they got something up their sleeves. They did this with that January 6th thing for months or whatever, a couple months. They just let Trump's legal people and Giuliani and all those people, Sidney Powell, come on their television every night and broadcast their position that something wasn't right. And they were just really quiet. And they'd say, well, there's no facts for that. But they'd be real quiet, real well behaved. And whenever they're well behaved in terms of attacking their designated scapegoat, Trump or his people, you always know they're cooking something. And that's exactly what they were doing. They wanted to get all that positive momentum for Trump, make it look like it's inevitable his win, and then do the switcheroo right once the VP and everything is set, the narrative is set, they're going to do a big flip. They've been planning this a long time. And I knew that the first time they did that debate, I'm not saying they necessarily planned Kamala to be the new replacement, but they've been planning to replace Biden for a long time, as many people have pointed out. But you really knew it was for sure when they did the debate. And the media, the anchors were so well behaved. These intelligence assets were so well behaved, and they were really fair. And then as soon as the debate was over, I remember watching it. ABC, CBS, every one of those intelligence agency cutouts came out with the exact same talking point. And here it was. Trump uttered so many lies, but poor little Biden just doesn't have the energy to keep up. He just doesn't. He just doesn't have the energy to address all of those lies. Now, what does that sound like? You're setting it up for a young, energetic prosecutor with all of the DEI characteristics that you need for their base, who's quick on her feet, allegedly, and who is able to make sure she can prosecute all the lies of Trump. So even in that very split, I remember like 10 seconds after the debate was over, ABC and every one of them issued the same exact talking points, which was Trump lied a million times, but poor little Biden just couldn't keep up. He just doesn't have the energy. He just doesn't have enough energy left in the tank to take out this serial maniacal liar. They were already setting the narrative up for a young prosecutorial type like Kamala to come in. This was all set up. And I think, like you said, they didn't, I mean, I guess they weren't expecting. I think they wanted a Nikki Haley versus maybe Kamala Harris, you know, and they didn't really care at that point who won. They'd actually let it be a legit election because heads we win, tails we win. So we're fine. You know?
Well, I mean, I like what you say and what you say, but and my view is this, right? First of all, Kamala Harris, I mean, there are a lot of people talking about whether she's eligible to be POTUS. When I read the eligibility, I think she was born on U.S. soil. There's some debate about whether her parents were American citizens at the time, etc. But she was born on U.S. soil. I think it's good. That's a hard lift to try and say Obama. There's no clear evidence still today that Obama was born on U.S. soil and that Obama was eligible to be president. I could make that argument, not with Kamala Harris. But what I want to say is why she must be disqualified and why she must not be allowed to run for POTUS is that she had 3 jobs really as a vice president, any vice president of the United States. One, which is the kind of side job, is that you have nice state dinners for dignitaries, blah, blah, blah. But the 2 core jobs, just 2, they want you to do nothing else but 2 jobs. One, be the tiebreaker vote in the Senate, if need be. And 2, your job is to invoke the 25th Amendment. And read your job description. It's to invoke the 25th Amendment if you as vice president deem that the president is unable to discharge the office of the presidency. She sat there for 4 years and lied. She lied even up to the day before that he stepped down and said, oh, he's healthy and he's fine and he's joining back the campaign. So they lied until they couldn't lie. And she was the head liar with that press secretary, Jean-Pierre, whatever the hell her name is, the BS crap that we get from her every day. I mean, I feel sorry for her. The kind of spin and lies. All of the press secretaries are liars. But this is how I'm trying to tell my view. My view is this, that they knew that Biden was fading, declining by the day. Biden has Parkinson's. He's in Parkinson's rapture almost every day. He has portions of Alzheimer's. They don't classically, they're not the same illnesses, but they have some overlapping components. He has senility and dementia. It's clear. That's number 1. Number 2, they knew he was failing daily. They knew by September, when the first debate was legitimately to happen, he would be far gone, in far worse situation. So what they did was they floated out this early debate in June, thinking Trump would have balked and they'd make that an issue. But Trump grabbed it. They felt they could have held their noses, amped him up with what they needed to, and Biden would have come out there, not necessarily defeat Trump, but at least show that he was able. So come to the stage, deal with the questions. Didn't have to defeat Trump, but don't lose. The worst thing happened though for them that night. The public was able to see, and Biden crashed, that he is non-compos mentis, not of sound mind, and he's physically almost disabled. So therefore, the cat was out of the bag. So they had a problem. So then, now, their problem is, how do they get him to November? I don't think he could get to November. This is my statement, number one. So right now, they're pulling him out, stepping down, trying to get to November. I don't even think Kamala Harris will be the nominee. She can't be. She can't. I think the Democrats are going to pull somebody else out, make them the nominee, because just what she did at the border. Listen, when you read the account of what happened to Jocelyn Nungare, that 12-year-old in Texas, Houston, what those two beasts, those feral Latino animals, did to this 12-year-old girl, how they brutalized her and threw her body in the river. That was Kamala Harris. Her blood, that young child's blood, is on Kamala Harris's hands, Obama and Biden's. We can't let her get away. We need to prosecute her in the media properly. Every single thing that went wrong with this border invasion, all the 13-year-old from Texas, Rachel Morin, the mother of 5, all these illegals, we need to prosecute. She's talking about she's going to prosecute Trump. We need to use our media to prosecute her, because what Biden and Obama and Harris did was criminal. We are in the gravest danger we have ever been in America with these illegals. And I'm not just talking about the Latino illegals. I'm talking about the Middle Easterners, the North Africaners, those Islamist adherents within the southern border illegals. They've come up through the southern border. We have terrorists in America today because of Biden and Harris. We need to make sure that Harris does not get to power. And they thought they were going to take out Trump. And I think Trump is our only answer right now. He's the only answer. And you know, David, people have asked me, must it only be Trump? And I've said, look, if you were to put up somebody, table up somebody who is Trump-like, who has the kind of strength, and this is about strength and boldness and nuts, go up into DC and do what needs to be done and to fix America. And we only need Trump for a little while, because this America have many of you, David, people like you, people who love their nation, young, and could lead the nation in the future. But right now, in the next few years, from what Biden and they have done, and Obama and they before, to America, we need somebody like Trump to get up in there and burn this shit down. Take DC down to the studs, burn it down. Figuratively, take it down to the studs, close. If I had my way, if I was running stuff, I would close every federal agency and give it back to the states. Close all. Take them all out of DC, close them down. Let the states run them. Let the federal government handle delivering my mail, taking care of my border, some of these issues. Everything else I let the states handle. No more federal government, none. Because the federal government becomes a corrupted powerhouse unto itself. Look at what, at least close half of those agencies and at least fire about 5,000 in each top down, because they're all corrupted, and relocate all out of DC. Take them out. Put them all over north of Alaska. Put them every single way and make life difficult for these employees, because they are crooks. They are overpaid, underworked crooks. And I could say it because I worked with many of them in DC. Over to you.
What about Kamala Harris? What do we expect with her for the next pandemic and lockdowns? That's what you were battling against in the Trump administration. What are the prospects that Dr. Paul Alexander is on the short list of Kamala Harris's pandemic task force?
Zero. Are you serious? Do you think they would even look? Okay, I'll tell you a joke though. After we left the Trump administration and Biden administration, and Janet Woodcock became the commissioner of the FDA, taking over for Stephen Hahn, who was under Trump. Crook as he was too. We had communications and they told me, Janet said, please send your resume in. So they're considering me. And I said, yeah, I'd consider a position at FDA. But then it just went cold. I think when they really sat back and thought about it and read about me and my fights with Fauci and Birx and all of them, including the FDA, Woodcock, who's the FDA commissioner, she tossed my resume in the garbage and said, now we can't bring him up in here. So it went from excitement, they asked me, to nothing. And I was okay with that. And but I was serving President Trump's administration, hands down. I will be there.
Yeah. But I can imagine them rolling out a very vicious lockdown regime with Kamala Harris. She seems like that. She seems like that Jacinda lady in New Zealand. Like she reveled torturing people and locking them up. It seems to be. I mean, that's the problem with the. I saw Vivek put out a talking point saying, "Hey," and he had some good points, but he said something like, "Hey, we got to stop saying that she's locked people away and thrown away the key. That's kind of a mixed message. She was really bad on crime." And I'm like, I don't understand how Republicans are not able to. I know why they don't understand this issue, but at least Trump gets it. But I don't know why he can't articulate it. His campaign, which is Kamala Harris was very good at locking up innocent, nonviolent people, and she was very bad at locking up violent criminal thugs. You see, that's a very simple concept, and I don't understand why they can't run on that. They feel like they have to run on her as being soft on crime, but I think to me, you can have it both ways because it's true. She was really good at letting nonviolent people and innocent people be languishing in prison for decades with no possibility of parole, but she had no problem letting violent criminal people run rampant in her jurisdiction. So that's easy to me. It's just upside down justice. That's how you frame it. Upside down justice.
But David, that's a perfect point you just raised, and the media doesn't cover it that way. Not even the right, not even the Republicans. There are a lot of messages they fail to get out in the RNC in Milwaukee. And the thing about it, and I was there, the thing about it is how you just said it. Her record is that she prosecuted innocent people and they languished in jail, and she went after people who were innocent and criminals, rapists, murderers, killers. She let loose and she used bail funds to get them onto the street. And here's the thing, I just wrote a Substack, again in my blog, Alexander COVID News, where the bail fund that she promoted let these people out on the street who turned around and raped and murdered again. That's the thing. All of the people she let out raped and murdered again. So whatever way she had of evaluating, should I let this person out? Should I help? It was flat wrong. It was wrong because they all killed again. So if we prosecuted her on her record, she can't be president of the United States. But again, going back, make it simple for people. She had two jobs. One is keep the country safe. She failed. With Obama and Biden and Mayorkas, they flooded America with 20 million illegals. That the border services, CBS, our border agents have told us, it's in the news, I'm not making it up, that in that 20 million, there are about 4 to 5 million what they call gotaways. They could not physically hold them because while they were dealing with one group at a certain part of the border, a bunch was running in half a mile down the fence. They couldn't be two places at once, and they didn't have enough manpower. They have estimated, because they have held 400 hardened terrorists in the 16 million they possess. They have told us that in the 4 million gotaways that are in America illegally, we don't know their names. There are approximately 120 hardened terror cell jihadist terrorists. We don't know their names and we don't know where they are. They are in America. And right as me and you speak, they could be plotting Bataclan, France type terrorist attacks where they kill hundreds of people at once, torture them, mutilate them. That is the legacy of Kamala Harris and Biden.
But see, the problem is her base and the people that are excited about her, they don't care about that. All they care about.
David, I don't understand that statement though. What do you mean? Explain that.
They don't care. They're well, a lot of them are sociopaths. They don't have this same basic level of human empathy. And a lot of them are just, they're motivated by sheer resentment and hatred for Donald Trump and what he represents. And number two, they're motivated by a kind of mimetic desire to see a girl boss type little cartoon avatar character that they've created with Kamala in power. That's all they want. They don't care. They there's a certain level of sociopathy that is behind this whole movement. I mean, her biggest thing she's running on is restoring the full rights of people to be able to kill and dismember children's bodies in the womb. And she frames it as, I'm protecting women's bodies, which is a damn lie. It's not their body. It's the child's body that's being murdered. Okay.
Yes.
And so it doesn't matter how small the child is or where they're actually occupying in time and space. They are a different body than the woman's body. It is a separate body that has a sovereign right to not be murdered in cold blood. But their whole campaign is built around, please let me have full, unfettered access to ritually sacrifice children to the god of modernism, even past the point of birth. That is a sick, disgusting, pathetic, bigoted, hate-filled campaign if I've ever seen it. And she's going to start World War III because she's going to want to show that she's a tough girl, that she can do it. And she's going to be pressing buttons trying to, show that Putin is like, do you think for 1 second Vladimir Putin is scared of Kamala Harris? Well, the only thing he's scared of is the fact that the whole world's going to be plummeted into nuclear annihilation because of an idiot like that trying to prove herself, and the intelligence agencies being very, very motivated by the same neo-Malthusian ideology that would very well do to have a depopulated planet. That's all. So that's what the only thing that he's concerned about at that point with a Kamala Harris is just the things popping off to try to show off to the point where massive loss of life happens, because these nukes or hypersonic missiles and so forth could be very, very lethal for large population centers. And you know what? They will institute lockdowns and rationing very, very much after it survives.
I know, and it's a brilliant, brilliant point that you made there. And so I don't forget, this is why the Republicans are such weak, pusillanimous people. They just like to go to the wine and cheeses and go to the functions. They don't want to govern. They don't want to lead. They don't even want to win. They just want to toss them a few chairs, chairmanships here and there. Why? We have Mike Johnson as the speaker. He can impeach Biden now. Why? They impeached Trump twice. They even were trying for a third time. You must impeach Biden for what he's done. Put that on the record. American people don't talk about, well, we are forgiven. No, that's a bunch of bull. We like accountability. We want punishment. We want legal, proper punishment. Impeach Biden. And this is why this election is key. It's not just about POTUS. It's about getting back the House and the Senate. Because at least if we don't win POTUS, if Trump can't take it home, we need the House and Senate, because we might have to impeach Kamala and remove her. That's the point I'm making. We might really have to go that far, because what you're saying is true. This lady, listen, she makes...
Unfortunately, there's no way, and thanks to Trump's campaign, actually, they have endorsed a lot of RINOs in key positions in the Senate and House. There's no way, unfortunately, I hate to pour cold water on this, There is no way that with the amount of RINOs that will be in the House and Senate, if they take bigger majorities, they will not impeach Kamala Harris. I guarantee you that. They
You
will
think
not.
you
They
think
will
the
not.
Trump campaign hasn't done enough to get the RINOs out?
No, he's actually, unfortunately, his campaign has endorsed RINOs over and against people who are way more loyal to his philosophy of governance. So, unfortunately, there will be zero chance of an impeachment of Kamala Harris, especially because they don't want to go on the record. They don't want to go on the record impeaching as a first woman minority as president. They don't even want to impeach Biden. I mean, Biden's over there got an Ashley Biden diary saying, I mean, they're scared to impeach that guy. I guarantee you they're not going to touch Kamala Harris. They will do nothing.
No, well, you see, you raise another valid point. This is why I like
to get
to talk
8 years.
You're a smart guy because look, let me tell you something. So I went to the RNC in Milwaukee, and months ago they were floating out, Paul, we're gonna get a 2-minute slot, come out there, introduce somebody, talk a little bit about your background quickly and what you did for President Trump. You had to praise him, of course, and of course I have nothing ill to say about President Trump. Then it went to the campaign have a problem because they don't want to talk about COVID. They don't want nobody to talk about the vaccine. So we will put you close to the stage, but we don't want you to speak. People know who you are, and that's good enough. We get some drag off of that. Let people put stuff in their own head. Then it went to, we don't want you there close to the stage. They went, David, in that RNC convention, not one word of COVID or the vaccine was mentioned. Can you imagine? And that's why this second election, Trump is still in the running because of what happened with COVID and the lockdowns. And I can't understand. They just wrote it out and everybody went along. And I cannot agree with that. I think that was a grave mistake. And as much as Kennedy has no chance to be POTUS, and I've always said that Kennedy must have a strong role in a Trump administration. Kennedy have good things to offer. I don't like his left policies, but I know the guy personally too. I think he loves America, and I don't have to agree with everything he says, but they have a lot of things I agree with. But that's why some people still vote against Kennedy, because he seems a little more logical. I'm not supporting him, but I mean, he's brave enough and he has stones enough that he would still make you understand we are here because of COVID. We started all of this media, and I mean, you were a little bit before, but you understand what I'm trying to say? And now they're trying to pretend that it doesn't exist. And let's just talk about other things, and we can't do that.
Yeah.
What's your view on that?
Oh, I think you're right. I think they're trying to, they're missing out on dealing with that huge issue that Trump didn't do the best on. I mean, I guess we don't understand. Like you said, you've talked about it many times that, he was threatened with all these people are going to die and all this stuff, and he's not going to be one to be a systems thinker to challenge some of the methodologies and how they get to these claims of massive loss of life. He doesn't know enough about that subject matter to be able to be a good critic. But I don't know. He may have been gone a long time ago if he had resisted it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, they have so many different ways of manipulation, but that's why it goes back to what I said to you last time, which is, look, I got to tell you, and this, just look at what they did with you, pushing you further and further away from the stage. First, you were going to be on stage, then you were next to the stage, then you were far away from the stage. That's how the regime keeps Trump, whatever good instincts he has, from being feckless and inability to be able to do great things, because that lets you know, as a metaphor, that what I said last time we spoke, where I said, if they let Trump in, they'll let him do A, B, and C, but not D, E, and F, or G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P. They won't let him do any of that. And that's metaphorically shown by the way their little handlers pushed you off to the side. Like, let me tell you something. In a sane world, you would be heralded as one of the great champions of human life because you were one of the few people who had the courage to say, stop doing these policies, which are literally murdering children.
Yeah.
There's nothing to, and you were hitting them on the use of ventilators. You were hitting them on the use of this greatest drug ever invented. I have to be careful with the words we use if we want to be allowed on some of these fascist media platforms. I just call it the greatest drug ever invented. You were very critical about that from the beginning. And you were very critical about what they were doing to schools with children. You were critical about what they were doing to lockdowns. You were critical about what they were doing to deny people access to effective anti-inflammatory therapeutics. Mm-hmm. You were right all along. Yes. And if there was any sane, morally decent human being in the RNC that had any power, you would have been a highlight speech. But that shows you that they are moral, feckless cowards. They're just as bad as Kamala Harris. And to be honest, if they keep leaning into that, we're going to want Kamala Harris to be president because we're going to want to get rid of this. The only way to get, in my opinion, I have to tell you, I love what Trump stands for when he's against the wars. I love what he stands for when he wants us to get away from globalism and one world governance. But at this point, with the amount of feckless fools and psychopaths that are surrounding his administration to be, I'd much rather have Kamala Harris take it because I'd rather people understand that this is in other words, I think that a Trump 4-year term with the impotent and sociopath people around him will be a part of the problem, actually, Yeah. And I think it's better to just let the poison fester and let the infection take its role, take its place. In other words, don't try to slow the infection. Let's let the infection do its work because that's the only way to wake people up. Let Kamala Harris rule for 8 years. They'll be begging for a little bit of freedom.
So you think when you say 8, so let's not jump off this side. I'm up here on the 12th floor. Let me just jump out this building. 8 years of Kamala Harris. So you say maybe after 4 we will be so hurt. But you think America, though, this is the question. People like us, when we sit down and philosophize a bit and think about what you just said, you think America could withstand 4 years of Kamala Harris?
Yeah. It won't, a lot of people are going to be hurt. A lot of people are going to be suffering, but basically the bureaucratic state will maintain its same employees and policies, whether Trump or Kamala is in power. And that permanent bureaucracy called the deep state will do wicked, horrible things to people. And the debt is so insurmountable that it will create wicked, horrible suffering for people. And the war machine will create wicked, horrible wars for people. And the sanctions will create wicked, horrible starvation for people. And all of these things will continue. And it's best probably to let it be branded with the Democratic brand. Let it go down with the ship. And we'll have to survive whatever we can do. Because, again, if Trump had the ability, and that's why I'm still having a little glimmer of hope of having some sane, morally upright people actually have access to execute power, yes, it could be somewhat of a reprieve on some of those things I just mentioned. Mm-hmm. But I'm very skeptical of that happening. Just look at what you just told me. Tells me everything. Hey, Paul Alexander, we'd like you to be a role in FDA. You saved millions of people's lives. Surely the founders would like somebody who had the moral integrity and scientific credentials to save millions of lives, and everybody was saying to do the opposite. Surely that kind of a person deserves a role. Oh, sorry, can't get back to you. Sorry. Hey, Paul, can you get on stage? You got 2 minutes to say something positive about Trump. Sorry. Can you get near the stage? Sorry. Can you be up in the rafters where Sting and the guy from the Phantom of the Opera stay? We're going to put you there. Is that okay? Okay. That tells me everything I need to know about the psychopaths that are around his administration. And unfortunately, look, he can only do what he can do. Politics is a stagecraft. What matters are people like you, Paul, scientists, doctors, people who actually do the hard work of reality. And unfortunately, our government is going to make it very hard for people like you to do what you do well. But all we can do is continue to stay focused, on executing the real change that needs to happen. And it's not going to happen through government. But you never say never.
No. And the thing is, you say things like about myself and all that, but let's face it too, David. People like you were out before COVID in your own, building your own platform and bringing a lot of good information to the public. And then COVID struck and you joined
I'm not
that.
looking, but see, the difference is, here's what I'm trying to say. No, yes, I've been saying a lot of things about the truth. But what I'm saying is just specifically about, you have the credentials that you deserve to be in a position of great influence for public health policy. And you have the track record and you have the moral integrity. I'm not looking for a position, and I know you're not either, but I'm just saying, I'm not scouting, or I'm not anywhere near that as an interest. And I'm not saying you are, but you obviously served your country when you had the opportunity to, and you did well, and you stood up to those sociopaths. And that's an insult to sociopaths, but you stood up to them, right? And they can't handle that, and that's okay. History will judge them. And it is
just think about it. Recently, in about a month ago, you had Redfield going up in a hearing, and you had Fauci going up in the hill in a hearing. Now, I'm telling your listeners quickly, and 2 points, because I know you had said 12 o'clock you had a roll. Me too. I have meetings. So listen. Full disclosure, aides to all of the Congress people and senators write me constantly. I get written by the Congress people, the aides, top aides. Dr. Alexander, we're going to bring XYZ to the Hill. We're going to have a hearing. Can you give us some questions that we should ask them? They ask me, and I give them questions. Sometimes I reach out to other scientists and other people I trust, and I say, look, give me some questions, your best questions, that if you were interrogating Fauci or you were interrogating Garland or somebody, what would you ask them? What would you ask them? And I would put together a package and send it out to the Congress. So in one of the last hearings, I listened to all the questions they asked Walensky. She was the CDC director. They asked Fauci. So I wrote them and I said in email, I said, listen, the questions we sent to you, you didn't use any. And they wrote me back basically and said, well, your questions was kind of too directed and too tough. I said, but what do you mean? You said it was a hearing. It was live. We want answers. They said, look, Paul, they wrote me and they put in print. They said, you don't understand. We don't bring each other up here when we have the chairmanship. So we have the House now. We don't bring Democrats here to get accountability. They don't bring us up. We just bring each other up to embarrass each other. They wrote that to me. Yeah. And I wrote back and I said, embarrass? You mean you don't want to get to the truth? You don't want to punish people? They said, no. That's not what this is about. Can you imagine? And then when that floored me, you had Fauci in a hearing recently saying the 6-foot social distancing rule was made up. Can you imagine? And Trump and they didn't talk about this at the RNC. That 6-foot social distancing rule ransacked the world, ransacked society. Do you know how many business owners in America hung themselves? They committed suicide because Johnny had a restaurant that had 10 tables. And then when you pop the 6 foot on him, in 2020, 2021, he had to reduce it to 4. He couldn't pay his rent. He couldn't pay his mortgage. He killed himself. He laid off employees who killed themselves. And you want to pretend that COVID didn't exist at the RNC, and you want Fauci to come up there and tell me 6 foot. We just made that shit up. I told the nation that 3 years ago. People said, where you got that from? Because Redfield told me in person. We just made the crap up. And
yeah, you said that. I remember you said that years ago.
That Fauci hearing really was the seminal moment.
They should have given you at least 2 minutes at the RNC to talk about the 6 foot rule. Just that.
The 6 foot social distance, Fauci said, really told us the whole pandemic response, David, was a fraud. Mm-hmm. What they did to us had no clinical, scientific, medical basis. They just did shit.
You got to understand, though, that democracy is a ruse. It's an imagination. This is oligarchs. Oligarchs will not let Trump touch any of their oligarchic industries, like the FDA. That's a racket. The CDC is a racket. These are all mafia thug rackets with trillions of dollars at stake. They're not going to let democracy touch their golden goose. But hey, keep doing what you're doing because you never know.
David, I
There's
know it's
always
coming close to 12.
Yeah.
We have to end, and I was kind of 10 minutes delayed, and we got screwed up yesterday. But ding me again. Let's do something this week, maybe next week, early, because we need to talk for like hours at a time. Because I think people need to listen less to me, less to other quote unquote experts, and listen to you. Bring us to talk, but we people like me. I like to tee you up because I want to hear what you have to say. You have more. You have a way of saying it and explaining it that the American people need to hear. You, I think, have the voice, but you have that depth that you could be a serious leader in this country. We're going to talk more about it. So anyway, David, can I just say my Substack?
Sure, of course.
You guys could look for me on my Substack. Just Google Alexander COVID News Substack. You'll find me. I have it for free. Just go in there, make comments, join the debate, and that's it. And thanks very much, David, again. And
Thank you.
I'm begging your people, support David. Don't support me or no one else. If you can't put your hand in your pocket, find a way to support David, please.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Paul. Thank you for coming on. It's always great to have you on.
Take care, brother.